second line. And there is another really funky trick, and I have never seen this in any other programming language. Python actually allows you to enclose a string inside triple quotes.
Okay, then.
Ever seen that one before, Christopher?
I have not. That's relatively unique.
It is, but the triple quotes, and it can either be triple single quotes or triple double quotes.
Okay.
But when you do this, you can actually write your print statement over as many lines as you want inside Visual Studio, and it will appear on the output the same way you typed it into the editor.
Okay.
So kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So let's take a look. I'm just going to do a couple of examples inside Visual Studio of how that would work. So I can say print. Apparently, if I can type print. So let's try the new line approach. Let's see. The capybara lives in /n, and it's the backslash, not the forward slash.
Backslash, so yes. Upper left, lower right.
Yeah, America. So it lives in South America. Oops, I can't mix up single quotes and double quotes in one line of code. That would be a bad idea.
By the way, so one of the things that came up in the chat window is what would happen if I wanted to print out a string that had both a single quote and a double quote.
Oh, okay. Let's after we get this, let's try that.
Okay.
We'll solve that little problem.
Okay. All right.
That's an excellent question, but we will take a look at that.
Okay.
So here I can see the capybara lives in South America. You can see that going across for 2 lines.
Okay.
So we've got that successfully working. And just as an example of this is the strangest way to print over multiple lines I know, which is this mysterious triple quote system. So it's perfectly valid. It does work, but it's a little unusual. It's not typical of most programming languages. Most of them will use either an escape character like the /n, or use multiple statements to print over the multiple lines.
Right.
Now, there was a question you said about how could I print something that contained a single quote and a double quote in the same line? All right. This is a little sneak peek at what we're going to see in the next chapter. Because one of the things you can do is you can actually, here is a string, and you can use a plus sign to take 2 strings and stick them together.
Okay.
So here is more. So I can actually use a plus sign to take 2 strings and treat them as one big long string. So now I can see that all appears as one big long string. So what I can do, and I have an extra space, so I'm going to get rid of that. So here is a double quote. And since that's a double quote, I'm going to put that inside a string that is single quotes.
Okay.
And then I'm going to say here is a single quote, which is there. And I'm going to take the string that contains the single quote and enclose that in double quotes.
Okay.
So just a little creativity. And then I can get a double quote and a single quote appearing in a single line.
Okay. And, you know, and I know you're going to get into this kind of momentarily, but there's always multiple ways to do something.
Yes.
And one of the nice things about doing it that way, if we go back to Susan's screen here, I'm just going to kind of use Susan's screen to talk to, is that you are kind of breaking it down maybe into smaller bite-sized chunks, which can certainly be helpful. But one of the things that you could actually do with that backslash is you can use that to escape a quote, so that if you kind of backed out the, yeah, there you go. Just say print, and then say, or you can, and then just do this, backslash, double quote.
Yep.
And then hit a space, and put something right there. Yeah. There you go. Perfect.
All right.
And now let's go ahead and run it again. And then now you'll notice that you've got the double quote in there as well. So multiple ways that you can do something, which we should talk about that.
We should.
Yeah, we
will.
should. Okay.
So the backslash character, so it's a special character. It has special meaning to Python.
Yep.
And it's a way of saying, hey, don't treat this quote the same way. So it's a way of saying, just display this quote. It's not actually ending the string. So that's another neat trick. So a couple of options there in terms of different ways to solve that problem. So, I seem to be stuck in the drawing mode. So same problem, multiple solutions. So Christopher, I'm going to ask your opinion on this one.
Okay.
We have 3 different ways of printing text over multiple lines. Which do you like best?
Oh, so kind of going back to that whole. So we've got multiple ways that we could do something. What's the best way? You know, for me, I really like that first one there. Just that print, and I know that gets maybe a little bit more verbose.
Yep.
But you know, that just seems to make more sense to me.
Yeah, it's easier to read when you come back to it later, isn't it?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have met people who seem to make almost a game out of seeing how much code they can fit into a single line. I have met coders who just live for cramming as much as they can into a single line. They're going to absolutely go for the option of using the /n to save on having to hit the return key. I mean, I guess maybe that's their way of being a lazy programmer. I respect everyone's right to be a lazy programmer their own way, but still include your comments.
Yep.
I would stay away from the triple quotes one just because it's not common. And that way, if somebody's coming from another programming language or you're going to another programming language later, you're not going to be able to keep that pattern.
Right. Yeah. And this is, you know, sort of going back to the very beginning that, you know, when we first kind of pitched all of this, the whole goal here is to help you get into programming. So not necessarily get into programming Python, but get into programming. And a lot of the concepts that we're going to be learning, you know, loops and if statements and all of that are consistent across every programming language. Will allow you to store a variable. There will be different ways that you can do that, but you are going to notice that every language has its idiosyncrasies, has its own little quirks, and as a result, you'll want to kind of pay attention to those. And I don't want to necessarily always say steer away from those because a lot of times those idiosyncrasies can be quite helpful.
Sometimes they allow you to do things that would be very difficult to do in another language.
Exactly.
But in this case, we have easy alternatives that are more common. So stick with the more conventional way of doing it, I would recommend in this case.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of people love the triple quotes, though.
It's neat.
Yeah,
I'm
getting
it's a funky
lot of
trick.
Comments here. Yeah, love the
Yeah, it's funny you said, but it's a neat, funky trick. I'd never seen it before I saw Python.
Yep.
There's another one that said, and that really is it. As a coder, one of the things you want to be aware of, there's often more than one way to solve the same problem.
Yep.
And a lot of times, it doesn't matter whether you use the /n. In the end, if the code works, you've done it. Awesome. Celebrate.
Yeah.
And I don't, in the end, that's what matters. Did you solve the problem? Does your code work? And
Exactly.
If you've used an unconventional way of doing it, that's all right.
Exactly. You know, a lot of people really get kind of just very, it has to be done this way. And I don't really have time for those types of arguments. If it's clean, if it's easy to read, you know, that's really it. And even to kind of go one step further, maybe make this a little bit more advanced, a lot of times people start asking, well, you know, what about performance? And if I write it this way, will it perform better than if I read it this way? And 99 out of 100 times, and in fact, probably 99.999% of the time, it's not going to make a difference, or it's going to make such a minuscule difference that, quite frankly, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So really, write the code that makes sense. Write the code that's clean, and go from there. So if we go back to the slide, do you still have your slide up? The one prior?
The geek tips or the
that
print
one there.
options? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, choose the one that makes the most sense to you. Choose to me, it's print and print. You know, if you like the backslash, then go with the /n. Then go with the.
And if you really like the triple quotes, go for it.
Exactly.
It's your code.
Exactly. So, and if I can steal just one last second, only just to kind of answer a couple of questions here. That / is an escape character. So for quotes, those have a special meaning. If you don't want it to have that special meaning, put a / in front of it. So /single, /double. If you want that new line, again, /n, that tab, /t. What would happen if you wanted a /?
Let's find out. Let's try and write.
Let's do it.
Let's try it. That, you know what? And this is actually one of the other truths of coding.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have the answer to everything. You can't find it. Sometimes the easiest way to find out the answer is to try it. Can I just print a / on the screen? Because, if that's a special character, is that going to do something weird? Is that what you want?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, let's see what happens. No problem.
There you go.
So no worries. If you want to print a /, Just put a slash in the string.
Put a slash
actually
in there.
smart. It's actually Python, as we mentioned, is a fairly forgiving language. There's other programming languages where you'd actually have to go backslash, backslash. But not in Python.
You are going to notice at times you have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will notice at times you are going to need that double backslash.
Yeah,
But if you want, just in the middle of two spaces, just go ahead and do that. Otherwise, you would need the two backslashes.
Yeah,
So
the challenge that you're talking about would be a, let's talk about...
Yeah, like a file path.
But what if I want /n to appear
there you go.
on the screen?
Perfect.
/news, like I'm putting maybe a URL for a website, right, that I'm displaying. Someone go to this website, and the website happens to start with N.
Yep.
Oh, wait. Gee, could that possibly cause a problem?
I'm predicting an
Oh.
See, ew.
It's like I planned it, but I didn't. So yeah, there is a situation where the slash was misinterpreted. It took it as a /n, but I actually wanted to print the /n. But yeah, how do we tell it, don't treat it as a special character? What do we do with the single quote? You
Put in a
slash in
backslash.
front of it.
So we'll put in another backslash.
Which looks a little weird. You're looking at it, and this, you know what? This is a good time for a comment. I am inserting a // so the slash appears correctly in the string. So that's a perfect time to take a little note to yourself, because you're going to come back later and go, why do I have // And now when I run, there we go. Now I can get /news.
Backslash. Yep, there you go.
Cool. So great questions. Keep those things coming, because yes, those are exactly the kind of things that catch you when you're trying to write your code later. That's why practice is so important, so you can encounter these odd little problems and gradually learn how to solve them. Okay, when good code goes bad, there is another really, really important programming concept you will need to learn as well, and that is the fact that it's okay to make mistakes in your code.
Right.
You will make mistakes in your code. We will make mistakes in our code today and tomorrow.
Promise.
Yes. So don't panic. Sometimes people, when they're writing code, they're like, oh, it's not working. I'm a terrible coder. No, you've just made a mistake, just like the rest of us do. You know, when I'm trying to learn another language, again, spoken language versus versus a programming language. I was going to say unspoken language, doesn't sound quite right. And I try to say something in German. Ich habe einen Schneeball auf meinem Kopf, which it means I have a snowball on my head. Useful phrase. I'm pronouncing that.
Flambe.
Yeah, I'm sure anyone out there who speaks German just cringed at my pronunciation. But I can't learn if I don't practice. And when I practice, yes, I'm going to mispronounce some words. Yes, I'm going to misconjugate some verbs. When I'm speaking in French, I'm going to get my masculin, féminin mixed up, those kinds of issues.
That was always the thing that threw me.
No, it's the verbs in French.
Okay.
Verbs in French are brutal. I am from Canada. I am actually, je suis bilingue. Je peux parler en français si c'est nécessaire. So I can speak French. I've spent a lot of time with my bécherel. Anyone who's learned French knows what a bécherel is. But it's okay to make mistakes. Don't stress out over it. In fact, it's quite funny. Sometimes when I make a mistake in my code, it might be 2 lines of code and I can't figure it out. If you get really stuck, walk away and come back. Retype the line. Or if you have a friend nearby, it's amazing how often, if you look at someone else's code, you can see their mistake. And if they look at your code, they can see your mistake. It's the weirdest thing.
It's one of those things that, when you're focused in on a problem, you just get, tunnel vision. And you keep thinking, well, it's got to be here. And having that fresh set of eyes can be extremely helpful. That one of the things that would happen quite frequently when I was in the classroom, and the same happened to you, is somebody would have a problem. You'd walk over, you take one look at their screen and immediately know, oh, okay, well, that's where your problem was. You would be able to immediately spot it. And it's not necessarily because we knew anything more than the student did, or than the person that we were helping. It really was just simply that fresh set of eyes. And one of the things that I'll frequently do if I'm having a problem that I can't quite figure out is I'll just go for a walk. I'll just go get a coffee, I'll go to lunch, and then I'll come back with kind of a fresh mind, a fresh set of eyes, and then usually I'm able to spot it just that much faster. So that fresh mentality, that new set of eyes really helps out quite a bit when you're trying to track down a problem.
It's funny, when I used to teach programming courses, and and I would go around and a student had a mistake somewhere in their code and they couldn't find it. I would come over and, as you said, quite often I would find the mistake very quickly. I used to explain to the students, the reason I'm so good at finding mistakes in your code is because I've made so many. So the more mistakes you find in your code and make, the better you're going to get at finding mistakes in your code. So don't stress it. But we have to start practice, right? We talked about how do you get to Carnegie Hall? You practice. So I'd like us to try practicing finding mistakes.
Okay.
So
well, you're going to have to make some mistakes. Oh, you've got mistakes.
I have some code here that would actually, every one of these lines of code has a mistake in it, Christopher. Do you want to take a shot at where the mistakes are?
Well, before I do that, I want to point something out there is I'm noticing color differences.
Yeah.
The colors aren't the way that they're supposed to be. So I'm noticing print hickory dickory dock, but that hickory dickory dock, it's all black. So it's looking to me like Visual Studio, if this was Visual Studio, isn't picking that up as a string. So I'm going to say that you probably forgot the quotes there.
Exactly. We should have some quotes around the string, and because we left those quotes out, it's confused, it thinks that's a command. So you're right, the colors can give you a hint.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
How about the next line? You got one.
I got one. All right. Well done to me. And again, I'm noticing wrong colors. So I'm noticing it is red, but at the very end, then small world is all in black. And then towards the very end, that closing paren is back in red again. So obviously, again, there's something that Visual Studio isn't quite picking up. And it's looking to me like you've got that single quote on its.
Yes. So how do I fix it?
Well, you could do a few things. You could change double on either side.
Yep.
You could also do a backslash single quote as well if you want to keep that. Now, in this case, I'd probably go with the double and then the single in there, but either way would actually work.
Yeah, you could use a backslash as well. All right, 2 for 2. All right, keep going.
And again, noticing the color is that closing paren is red, and that shouldn't be red.
Yep.
So now I know that it's not picking up the end of the string, and if we take a look, I've got a double at the beginning and a single at the end.
Yes, so I've accidentally mixed up double single quotes in a single string. And this is, again, one of those reasons you want to get in the habit of always using one or the other, because if you mix them up, this is the kind of typing mistake you'd make so easily.
Exactly, yeah. That, kind of pick one thing and just go with it. Yeah, it's just going to make your life that much easier.
All right, I have one more typing mistake for you to find, Chris.
All right, let's see it. Right at the very beginning there, last I checked, it was INT.
Yes,
there
actually,
we go.
And you know what? It's funny, the color coding still can help because it didn't recognize it as a command.
Exactly.
So the text showed up in a different color. So let's see how you did. Sure enough, yes, well done.
Woo-hoo.
All right, high fives.
4 for 4. All right,
there we go, good man. All right. So yeah.
Cool. I get to keep my job. I could get to stay here for the rest of the day.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
You're allowed to stay. It's all good.
Excellent.
So now that brings us to the end of the new syntax we're going to introduce inside this module. You now know how to display text on the screen, which we talked about. You can now basically tell someone a story, you can tell someone a poem, you can give information about the capybara. Now everyone knows all about the capybara, the large South American rodent. Yep. So your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is to write a program that will display the following poem on the screen. See, I was feeling creative. There once was a movie star icon who preferred to sleep with the light on. They learned how to code a device that sure glowed and lit up the night using Python.
Okay, we have our first limerick of the day. Fantastic.
So you want, obviously this is text, it's going to appear over multiple lines. So basically it's just practice. You're looking at this going, hopefully saying, I can do that. Well, that's the goal. Yep. Right? So now you can do this over multiple lines. Experiment if you want to try including some slashes and things just to try it out. Try it. Go ahead. Explore.
Absolutely.
If you get stuck, the GitHub, when you download that zip file, in there you're going to find a folder called Solutions. You'll actually find a suggested solution. But it is only a suggested solution because you could solve this a lot of different ways. So if you come up with a solution and then you look at our solution afterwards and go, oh, I did it wrong because their code isn't the same as mine. No. Nope. That doesn't mean you did it wrong. What that means is you came up with a different way to solve the problem. And that's, again, scores a congrats. You are a coder kind of moment.
Exactly.
So congratulations. You can now write a computer program that will actually share information with the user.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And along those lines, just kind of real quick, because we're getting kind of a lot of questions about, hey, well, if we wanted to put together a variable.
It's like Well, guess what's covered in the very next module?
We are absolutely going to get into that. I'm also seeing things, like about this being easier than another language, or about the lack of semicolons, definitely there. And the big thing, again, that we want to point out is the goal of this course is really to help you become a developer. So
and get comfortable with it.
Exactly,
It's not that scary.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to notice here that we're not going to really get into like databases. We're not going to get into object-oriented, because that's not the goal here. The goal here is to help you get your feet wet, to help you get into programming. There's going to be plenty of time to get in and start doing object-oriented programming.
Yep.
There's going to be plenty of time to get in and take a look at how to create web apps with Python. But today, tomorrow, it's really about, before we can run, let's walk. And that's what today, tomorrow are all about, is just kind of those first steps into becoming a developer and inside of Python.
Absolutely. No, you've got to start with the basics, and that's what we're going to cover here.
Yep.
So I think that takes us to the end of this module. Let's take a little break, and we'll be back in another 10 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. All right, we will see you guys in 10. All right. Well, welcome back to Introduction to Programming with Python. Alongside Susan Ibach, I am Christopher Harrison. And where we last left our hero, which was much more difficult for me to say than it should have been, what we did was we displayed out string literals. So what happened was Susan was doing the demos. She typed something out. She put it inside a print, and it printed out on the screen, which is certainly something that you are going to be doing, things like error messages, prompts, and the like. But at some point, we want our program to be interactive. At some point, we need to get something from the user that if I just simply go in and hard code that this is always going to display this, I'm sort of limiting the reusability of that program. So now we want to get into working with input from the user. We want to get into actually making things a bit more dynamic. And that's exactly what we're going to do with Module 3, which is going to be string variables, variables in general, and getting the user to input in a value.
Yeah, absolutely. We can be a lot more interactive when we've got a user telling us things as we go.
Exactly, yeah. Two-way conversation. We're having a two-way conversation. See how that works? It allows you to do more. So then that way, if you want to be able to handle payment information on a website or put in your address so that way people know where to ship your products, they can go ahead and do that. If you're dealing with information about insurance policies, if you're looking to set up really any form of calculation, where is it? I should go ahead and grab it here. There we go. Go ahead and grab. I love this thing.
Cortana.
Ask Cortana to tell you a joke. By the way, for those of you who do have Windows Phone 8.1, ask Cortana to do an impersonation or to do an impression.
Oh, I haven't. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've asked Cortana where Master Chief is, and I've asked Cortana for a few jokes and had a few good ones. My personal favorite Cortana joke, a Roman walks into a bar and holds up 2 fingers and says, 5 beers, please. All right, on that note,
moving right along. All right. So the question is then, how do we get input from the user? So for right now, again, we're kind of keeping things relatively down low. And so you're going to notice that we're not going to be building up web pages. We're not going to be doing voice recognition or anything like that. But the principles still stay the same. So regardless of where the user is actually entering in the information, be it on a touch keyboard, be it via voice, the fact of the matter is that you're still going to be getting textual data in from a user somehow. So a lot of the concepts that we're going to be going over are still going to apply regardless of where you are. That being said, we are going to stick with the command line, and I think that's always a great way to learn a programming language. That honestly,
one less thing to worry about in the short term.
Exactly. I don't want to set up a button in an event handler in a text box, and you know what? Just let's keep it nice and simple. When we're focused on the language syntax, let's do that. And so that's what we want to do here. So the question then becomes, well, how do we ask the user for information? So let's take a look at my slide here. And right here is a little bit of a basic command. So I'm going to highlight that first part right there, that little input. And input is the command that you're going to use to get information from the user. So you can almost think of this as the opposite to print, that if print is displaying information, input is how you're getting input from the user.
Yep.
Now, the way that input is going to work, and we'll see this when I get in and do my demo here in a moment, is you're going to notice right here that we've got the opportunity to display a prompt. That if all of a sudden we just simply said input, and I'm just looking at a blank screen with a cursor, not going to exactly know what it is that I'm supposed to type. So fortunately, input allows us to add in a prompt. So we can go in and say, what is your name? What is your quest? What is your favorite color? You know, whatever it is that we want to put into there, we can now prompt the user for that. So I'm going to break this down again into kind of two parts. Part 1, input, that's the command. Accept information from the user. And then part 2 is going to be that little prompt, and that's what's now going to display out to get something back from the user. Now, there's also this little thing right here, name. Now, let's kind of go with English here. Name in English, of course, means, well, name.
A person's name?
Yeah, a person's name.
Or a thing's name?
A thing's name. It's how you're going to identify something. So you're going to notice, if we go back to the code here, what is your name? Well, we'd obviously expect somebody to type in their name, so we've got this little thing over here called name. Now, we're going to talk about what this thing is in a minute here. For right now, though, let's treat that tantamount to magic. Let's not worry too much about that. Trust me, this is one of those things where you just have to kind of go with us here. Promise. We will, absolutely will explain what all of that means. Promise you. We're just not going to do it quite yet. So for right now, we're just going to focus in on that part right there. That's all that we're going to focus in on. So, again, that input function allows us to get information in, and it's going to give us back whatever it is that the user typed in. So whatever the user typed in, that's now what we're going to get back. And then you are going to notice that we can use a variable to remember what was entered in. Again, we're going to talk more about variables here in a couple of minutes. So kind of just
we'll get into that.
Stick with us there. Now you are going to notice that we could call it whatever we want. So if you wanted to go in and maybe just call that, for example, Wibble instead of name, you could go in and do that. It'll work.
It'll work.
Won't make any sense, but it will work. So you're going to notice right here, we're already teaching you a bit of a good programming style here. Use names that make sense. So if you look at a name of something and you're going, I don't know what it is that that's supposed to do, take another look at the name that you've got, because you've probably got a bad name there. Okay. So let me go to Visual Studio here. Let's go in and take a look at a demo. Get out of my slide deck here. Okay, so let me go in and create a brand new project. So just File, New Project, Python application, and Module 3. And this is going to be strings and variables. There we go. And then let's go ahead and hit OK. All right, so again, we've got that little print hello world. I'm going to get rid of that.
Yep. Don't need that right now.
Exactly. And I'm actually just going to use the code that was on the slide there. So I'm just going to say name equals, and we'll say input. And, ooh, that looks kind of cool.
Yes.
We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, what is your name?
What is your quest?
Exactly. All right. Now, what I'm going to do, so now we've got the what is your name here, is I'm going to kind of do this in chunks. So I'm just going to click Start up here. And sure enough, you're going to notice my screen prompts me and says, what is your name? Well, my name happens to be Christopher, so I'm going to type out Christopher. I'm going to hit Enter. and it just simply says, press the any key to continue. Not very exciting.
Yeah, but you know,
yeah.
maybe it took the value, but it did prompt you. You got to type something in.
I did get, yay, I got to type something in, yay! There was much rejoicing, yay. But yeah, so it at least prompted me for that, but you know, it didn't really do anything else with it. So I'm going to actually go one step further here just to kind of show that it did in fact store this. Let's go in and say print, and for right now I'm just going to say name.
Sure.
And now once again we'll go ahead and hit start. I love these little touch screens.
Yeah.
And let's go in and say Christopher, enter, and sure enough it prints out Christopher.
Cool.
Fantastic.
You know, there was a neat little trick that somebody showed me with this, that I thought was kind of cool. And the way, you know how it shows the, you know, what is your name, and then the cursor's right after it? I ran into somebody who actually wanted the cursor